Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where all of Hollywood is very excited about Inside Out 2's mind-bogglingly good numbers. They're not even jealous because they're hoping, well, first of all, they're thrilled that the movie industry isn't dead, but also they're hoping that a rising tide lifts all boats. And there's a couple of nice headlines here, but wow, no one's as big as Disney, which pre-pandemic and pre-Bob Chapek was always the case. So it might seem that the Mouse House is back online after quite the detour. Although to be fair, Inside Out 2 was developed during Chapek's short, chaotic tenure. But pre-pandemic and pre-Chapek, Disney dominated the box office. It wasn't that long ago, but it seems like forever. In 2019, they had 7 of the top 10 movies of the year. 8 if you count Sony's MCU Spider-Man. All of them billion-dollar films. Whew! You'd have to go back to 2014, 10 years ago, to find a box office lineup not dominated by Disney. Today, in 2024, Inside Out 2, in just 12 days, has hit $355 million domestic and a whopping $724 global. My goodness, outpacing last year's juggernauts Barbie and Super Mario Brothers. It will hit $1 billion most likely before Despicable Me 4 opens in a little over a week, which now likely wishes it had a little more breathing room. But maybe it will ride Inside Out 2's animation coattails. Did you have fun seeing Inside Out 2? Want to do it again? What are you going to see over the holiday weekend? You have plenty of choices, as we're going to discuss, because it's been pretty bleak, but now it seems we have a freaking traffic jam. All right, but as for Disney, is this just the beginning of a beautiful 2024 for the mouse? Because next up, they have Deadpool and Wolverine, Moana 2. The trailer looked very nice on the IMAX screen when I saw Inside Out 2 again yesterday. And so did Mufasa the Lion King's trailer. Those trailers looked much better up on the big screen than on a computer or on a phone. So Disney could have an incredible year. And these are all sequels and prequels. Bob Iger's mandate of sticking to what they know seems to be the right move from a business perspective. And I mean, Disney's just got to get back online. The only original project that Disney has coming down the pipeline that they've announced is Elio from Pixar, which of course has been delayed. And let's be honest, no matter how good that movie is, at best it's probably going to do Elemental numbers, which were pretty good, but it's not like this Inside Out 2 business. It's just printing money. But the thing is, before you have a big franchise, you have to roll the dice with an original idea to start it, right? I mean, now we're like, where's Incredibles 3? But they had to make Incredibles 1. They had to take that chance at first. And Hollywood prefers this method instead, you make a deal with already established IP. They've been doing it since the beginning of Hollywood. It used to always be about books, then it was adapting TV shows, comic books, now they're moving into video games. That's what they like to do. And this is exactly why Bob Iger went on his legendary buying spree back in the day. And Disney now owns so many franchises at this point, it's basically an IP farm. And it just has to keep milking the IP that it has. It doesn't really need to create new IP. And I think right now, I don't know if Disney's creative leadership is in a place where they could do that. I think that they have such a problem with fandom and having stepped into the political space that I think they just, again, need to get back on track. And with things that are familiar and, as we're going to discuss with Inside Out 2, as inoffensive as possible. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see. And even when some IP does make a little bit of a mistake, Disney has so many that IP can take a little bit of a break and the other IPs will just keep going. It is pretty beautiful when you look at the setup. Now, our original idea is dead in Hollywood? Well, not quite. Warner Brothers, of all the studios, is creating the most new franchises. Although, Wonka, you could argue, has been around for a while, but it's been such a long time that it kind of is a little bit new, I guess. I'm going to call it new because we don't want to think that Hollywood has no originality. So Warner Brothers is getting some new franchises and IP online. And they're getting a lot of bang for their buck. Not this much, but I mean, these things are just getting started. And down the line, they might be seeing very big returns. Although, good luck to Denis Villeneuve for cracking the story in Dune 3, which is less action-oriented. That's going to be real tough. We'll see, though. I'm rooting for him. 2 was just so good. But just like in streaming and in the theme parks, Disney has a huge head start on all their competition. Although Warner Brothers, with these new franchises they're just starting, and Universal, particularly with the Dark Universe announcement, are proving that the gap can be closed with the combination of working real hard and then Disney stumbling. And also, they're trying, someone had a good theory that I was talking to that, and we talked about this on the live stream, that Walt Disney never really trained anybody to take over. And most of the people who did work with him and learned what they could are also being phased out of Disney, retiring, passing away. And so the company's finally at a place where they got no influence from Walt. And I think that you're kind of seeing that. And so I'm not quite sure how they're going to move forward. Before it's been cyclical. They've always managed to come back. But, no one's going to pop up who magically worked with Walt back in the day anymore. That's over. So they're going to have to find another way forward. Very interesting. And on that note, Disney is truly fighting for its life right now, especially because so many are waiting on pins and needles for them, forget to stumble, to fail. And so this win is hugely important, especially, again, as we discussed last week, because they're stuck in this horrible Star Wars situation with the Acolyte. So they really needed this to shore them up. So we'll see. Bob Iger, unlike Chapek, just keeps his head down and keeps milking that IP. And we'll see if anyone here has learned from Iger. Although, of course, it's a very different, Iger is more of a business person, whereas Walt was a creative. Roy handled the business. And so I guess that's why it was such a good sweet spot for a little bit there when you had the crossover between Iger and Walt's legacies. Chapek was supposed to have learned from Iger, but that went horribly wrong. All right, so Inside Out 2, as I said, is a movie that everyone can enjoy. There is absolutely nothing offensive about it. Because believe me, people are looking these days for something to complain about when it comes to Disney content. Look at some of the quibbles over The Acolyte, which are just ridiculous. But so ridiculous that it's made everybody finally kind of start to turn on those complaints. Because it was like the jumping the shark with the latest round of complaints. But anyway, there's also a lot to relate to with Inside Out 2. Everybody's gone through puberty, man. And I saw the movie again this weekend, and the third act panic attack, movingly brought to life, is truly a powerful sequence. That might wrap up the best animated feature Oscar for them right there, as again we discussed last week. And also how Riley and her emotions deal with that panic attack, I think is a message that everyone can get behind and feel is nice to see. Also, kudos to Maya Hawke and Ayo Adebri, who both do inspired work here. Although really, this is a breakout role for Hawke, and I hope Hollywood realizes it. This Nepo baby done good. And she's poised to become as big a name as perhaps both her parents. Kudos also to the animators on Anxiety, as the animation is also inspired. Remember back in the day, you used to know the animators who worked on the projects? I think computer animation works a little bit differently, so that's why there isn't the same maybe level of ownership. But that's a shame. I think that also helped these projects as well. Everyone knew who Glenn Keane was, etc. With movies, though, this is how Hollywood is supposed to work. A movie opens so ridiculously big, it's at the right time and the right place. It just explodes. And then the curiosity factor kicks in, and everyone else feels they need to join the party. They're like, I should see this in theaters. It's such a big deal. It's also believed that the current intense heat wave hitting a huge swath of the United States and the globe overall is also helping with everyone pouring into air-conditioned movie theaters. That's a crazy silver lining on global warming. A very serious issue, of course, and a surprising reprieve for Hollywood. All right, so in its second weekend, Inside Out 2 fell just a jaw-dropping 35%. That's it! Almost unheard of for any movie, especially, though, a major blockbuster. In its second week, that is incredible. Although, if you look at the lowest drops back in the day, when movies were like really doing well in their heyday, this wasn't as unusual as you would think. I was able to find a number of movies, like Incredibles, Monsters, Inc., Pirates of the Caribbean, even the recent Top Gun Maverick, had holds like this in their second weekends. And it's the sign of a box office whale. At this rate, as I said, Inside Out 2 is pretty much guaranteed to hit $1 billion and potentially even get close to $1.5 billion. How high can it go? Oh, it's exciting! Although all these other movies are racing in to slow it down a little bit. Although it's going so fast, it's almost at $1 billion already. Disney is estimating $100 million second weekend. And, you know, it's important, that number, which you'll find out why in a minute. So that's why it's an estimate, although we'll see if it holds on Monday. It might be a little bit less, but you know, Disney doesn't want to embarrass themselves either. So they must feel pretty confident in this estimate, and it might even end up being a little bit more. But $100 million will be another feather in Inside Out 2's already impressive cap, because it will be only the 7th film ever to top $100 million in its second weekend, a number which is bigger than the debut of the first film. If that number doesn't hold, it just has to top Barbie's $93 million to still be the seventh biggest second weekend of all time. Woo! And even beyond Disney, as Inside Out 2, the jolt that this summer's movie season needed. Will audiences having a great time with this film feel that they're going to go and see the other films that are coming out for 4th of July? Hollywood has a whole lineup planned. You've got A Quiet Place Day 1, Horizon, Despicable Me 4, and even Maxine. There's something for everybody this holiday season. Of all these, Despicable Me 4, of course, is going to plow right in to Inside Out 2 in a week and a half. Although Inside Out 2 is losing its premium screens already this weekend to A Quiet Place, while Kevin Costner's visually stunning Horizon, one of the best things about the movie, I saw it this past week. My review will be going up now on Tuesday, I'm afraid. Sorry for the slight delay. I thought it was solid. But one of the best things about it are the visuals. But yet it can't get a single premium screen. This is like Tom Cruise going up against Barbenheimer last year. I don't know why I think they wanted, because of the patriotic angle maybe, to have it play over the 4th of July holiday. But how is it going to get it doesn't have any premium screens. And Hollywood, please build more premium screens. But I think those are a bigger deal. And I think, because some of you have said you don't really need the premium screen, although I think particularly in the cities, people really gravitate towards the premium screens. But even when it comes to regular big size screens, those are getting gobbled up too, because all these movies are playing on multiple screens. A Quiet Place, Despicable Me 4, they're playing at least on 2 screens per multiplex. And so that's 4 screens already spoken for. So Horizon and Maxine, they're going to get stuck on the smaller screens at the multiplex, even though they're just opening, which is a real shame. As I said, now we've got a movie theater traffic jam. And when you get these movies stuck on small screens, it's just another reason for people to wait for digital, because they're like, it's barely bigger than my screen at home. Everybody built up their screens during the pandemic, their home theaters. And so why would you do that if it's going to be on such a tiny screen? And it just doesn't seem like as big an event anymore. What a shame. And with these movies barreling down the pipeline, is it time for the current crop of movies in theaters to head to digital? Some, of course, like If, are already there. Bad Boys Ride or Die is having an incredible run in theaters as well. Some of you have pointed out that that's getting lost a little bit in the huge tsunami of Inside Out 2's cash. But yes, I think it's important to point out that Bad Boys 4 is also a very big hit, with another stronghold in its 3rd weekend. And under different circumstances, it could probably play exclusively in theaters for another couple of weeks, but it's going to run out of screens real quick. But then, of course, the question about when it should go to digital. I would usually think over the 4th of July holiday. But then again, Eddie Murphy will be playing a rule-breaking cop in another tropical city over the 4th of July holiday on Netflix. So should Sony's Bad Boys 4 try to drink Netflix's milkshake? I mean, the Axel F movie looks excellent, and that's also a very strong brand. Or, even though they're basically going to be pushed out of the multiplex, do they wait a few weeks to go to digital? What would you do if you were Sony and you were planning the digital release? I mean, it's already done amazing business in digital pre-orders. It's currently at number 56 on iTunes' top 100, and it's been even higher the past few weeks. It's been like top 20, top 30. Now, even at 56, it is the only current theatrical release doing that kind of pre-order business. So it's going to drop in a lot of people's inboxes when they finally do hit publish on Sony for digital. Remember, then it'll eventually head to Netflix due to Sony's deals. As for this weekend's new releases, all 4 managed to make it into the top 10, with the Bike Riders faring the best, at least financially. The audience scores are weak, but at least they're better than Russell Crowe's latest horror movie, which got a D. A D! Do you know how rare it is to see a cinema score in the D range? It's almost unheard of. I think when many of us first saw this grade, we were like, is there even a D? It's very, very rare. At this stage, though, clearly Russell Crowe can't be embarrassed. Although the Bike Riders debuting in the double digits does save face for the all-star cast, which is largely made up of up-and-comers outside of Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy, let's not kid ourselves, he needed the win as well. And I wouldn't even call it a win, but I would call it a stay of execution. The film was supposed to be an awards contender last year, and it even started out on the festival circuit. It already played last year on a number of festivals. But at the last minute, Disney Fox blinked, with many saying it was because Gareth Edwards, the creator, tanked, which is from the same production company and was another, intellectual filmmaker trying to make a little bit more of a commercial film. And they're like, no, thank you. So Regency, we're like, we're not doing that twice. And then the creator, I feel like that was a good film. Don't worry, Gareth Edwards landed on his feet with the Jurassic franchise. We're going to talk about that. But New Regency had to scramble and ended up at Universal's Focus Features. Focus is doing the domestic release. Universal is releasing it worldwide. Word is that New Regency was happy with how Focus had handled The Northman. Remember that? Which had a little heat as well. People were excited about that. I was excited about it. It was actually also a pretty good movie. But it never went anywhere. And I think The Bike Riders is going to fade away just as quickly. I don't know if you would say Focus handled The Northman particularly well, although I guess everybody associated with it, again, had a stay of execution. So I guess in that regard, it worked. Kudos also to June Squibb, who stars in Thelma and also has a tiny part in Inside Out 2. Well, Right Here, Right Now is another concert film. Showing that while not everyone, of course, can be a Taylor Swift or a Beyonce, there is range in this concert film space. And, other people can make use of it. I mean, it debuted in the top 10. That's pretty nice, especially since I'm not familiar with this band. I think it's Ghost or something. Are you? Then in the specialty market, this is also very interesting. Speaking of directors and crafting their careers. Yorgos Lanthimos and Emma Stone's follow-up to Poor Things exploded out of the gate in very limited release, 5 screens only. But it seems critics and even the die-hard fans who are rushing to the theater to see it first are having a harder time getting behind this one, with Kinds of Kindness having one of Lanthimos' lowest critic scores at 73%. So Kindness might end up a flash in the pan for him. Careful, Lanthimos, careful. You don't want to pull an Ari Aster or a Darren Aronofsky, both of those, and even Wes Anderson to some degree. They have not yet been able to recover. Meanwhile, Robert Eggers, who directed The Northman, is trying to go somewhat commercial still. Next up, he'll have Nosferatu. But it is, as I said, hard to build a directing career. I'm blanking on the name. He did so well with the Godzilla franchise, right? Now he's going back to his horror roots for A24. Adam Wingard, right? So he's done a very nice job. And you see all these other directors seeing if they can follow and do the same. The Bike Riders, Jeff Nichols, though, I think I would probably be done with him. The only reason that Gareth Edwards is getting yet another chance is because he has so many blockbusters on his resume. Although he didn't really do Rogue One. Although if you watch The Creator, clearly he has a lot of creative ownership on Rogue One. Tony Gilroy's just kind of single white femaled him in terms of the directing style. But, it's working, although, so many people are like, Andor was where it's at. But Andor had the worst ratings ever. It was just horrible ratings, like lower than all the other Star Wars shows. So that just goes to show, these hardcore Star Wars fans, who loved Andor, not enough to move the needle ratings-wise. Everybody has to come together on a property like that. All right, we still haven't seen the Acolytes numbers. We'll see them next week on Nielsen's charts. Oh boy, I think it'll be next week or the week after. Over on streaming for late May, Bridgerton, thanks to Nielsen counting all seasons of a show as one, is still mega dominating in the first full week for season 3 on these charts. Of course, it debuted last week. Again, on the Nielsen charts. But again, it's one of only 3 original shows or movies on the overall chart. And while everyone might be picking on J-Lo right now, at least she made a solid dent here. And Evil, wow. We've been talking about Evil a little bit over the past few weeks because it keeps popping up on these charts. And some of you have written me that it makes you very happy as fans of this show. So kudos, congratulations. It's so nice when the show you love finally gets some attention, right? It's in the middle of its 4th season here, with a 4-episode final 5th season hitting later this year to wrap things up. Although you never know, considering how good these numbers are. Evil, I got curious about this show. So Evil is from Robert and Michelle King, who actually have an amazing TV track record, particularly with CBS Paramount, which is still going strong, as Elspeth is a breakout hit on network television, no less. I mean, I'm sure it's getting a boost from Paramount Plus, but it's one of the remaining new network shows that's really doing well. Pretty awesome for Carrie Preston, by the way. True Blood fans, of course, know her well. She's married to fan favorite Michael Emerson, who's on Evil. Hollywood, such a small town. Evil started out as a network show as well on CBS before moving entirely over to Paramount Plus. The Kings will obviously continue to work and make their shows. They have a little industry going there. But hopefully they and Hollywood do something with the Evil cast going forward. As for comfort food shows, those older shows that audiences are rediscovering, they're still loving Family Guy over on Disney Plus Hulu now that that's a hybrid service. I think you still have to subscribe to them separately in order to get the hybrid experience on one interface. It's still complex. I'm sure they're going to fix that eventually. But now subscribers seem to have discovered Bob's Burgers as well. Disney Plus has almost nothing on these charts. Bluey here and Moana over on the movies charts. Nothing on originals. But combining the interface with Hulu does seem to have helped Hulu's shows, the evergreen shows, for the most part, immensely. Hulu has one show at the very bottom of the originals chart. We'll get there in a moment, but also I want to point out that Dune Part 2, finally hitting Max here, made the overall chart as well. On the originals chart, these numbers are very weak, which is allowing some of the smaller shows to be able to chart for once. Netflix's new show, Tires, is here, and also Hacks. I love Hacks, in the middle of its 3rd season when you see in the context of this chart. Both these shows, by the way, have been renewed for new seasons. Then with movies, all Netflix on this chart outside of Dune Part 2 and Moana. With Netflix's charts, while its numbers might still be small, at least Hitman is still number 1. Although the latest Mission Impossible also just hit Netflix, and these numbers are not very encouraging. As we all know, the last Mission Impossible didn't do particularly well in theaters. So the hope would be that on digital, it did pretty well on digital, but on digital and then down the line on streaming, it would find a huge audience. Everyone would discover it then, and then it would be the next coming up film would be in a good position to do well, because even if they take it out of the title, it's still a part 2 of the story. So these numbers are not great news for Tom Cruise and the Mission Impossible franchise. I loved that movie, but maybe the Mission Impossible franchise is just played out, because that's it's 7th or 8th entry. Nothing really here, though, is exciting Netflix subscribers overall, even with a total of 4 new movies hitting the service here, as you can see. Although, you know what they are excited about? Non-English language film Under Paris, that one that Stephen King tweeted about, here in its 2nd week. It's doing it's a little bit smaller. It's about 10 million under what it debuted last week, but it's still doing a little over double Hitman's viewership. Whew! Did you watch Under Paris? I still haven't watched it yet. I'm tempted, though. As for shows, someone's watching it. All right, as for shows, Sweet Tooth was able to go from 5th to 2nd place in its first full week on Netflix's charts, but the actual numbers didn't improve by much. And it's still nowhere near a juggernaut like Bridgerton, whose part 2 of season 3 dropped here in this window, which is why it went back up to a very strong number 1. Eric is still holding on in the mid-range. It didn't totally drop off the charts. That's okay. That's pretty good, right? While, despite his pleas on social media, this to me is also very interesting, Netflix subscribers have at least not yet, blown up Your Honor, which just hit the service coming over from Showtime Paramount Plus. It's very interesting to me to see talent realize/hope that they can get a Suits Young Sheldon style 2nd chance or 3rd chance or 4th chance for their work on the big streaming services. And clearly Bryan Cranston thought that might happen for him. So far, It has not. I've watched a couple episodes of Your Honor. I'm sorry to say it's just not that good a show. Talk about a fumble. Bryan Cranston was on top of the world coming out of Breaking Bad. Remember, we were like, he should be Lex Luthor? I mean, talk about squandered capital. He has really actually ended up doing nothing with it. I mean, maybe he's just living his best life, so that's fine. But you didn't think he'd been able to build a little bit of a better career coming out of that. No one really has out of Breaking Bad. Even Vince Gilligan, Better Call Saul, snubbed at the Emmys for many seasons. All right, so then on iTunes, If is the latest theatrical release to hit streaming at #1, thanks to everyone who decided we can wait. Sprinkled in with other recent theatrical releases are 50 Shades, 2 of those movies, and John Wick 4, because they're significantly on sale. And while Henry Cavill has had a very difficult year this year, at least Ungentlemanly Warfare has done very good on digital. But it can't be the new Beekeeper, especially when you compare the box office numbers. Whew, Cavill's box office numbers are bad. I don't think he maybe can be Bond with numbers that bad. I mean, even if you're a Henry Cavill super fan, can you defend this box office? I mean, that's rough. That's really, really rough. And The Beekeeper is not a great movie either, and that did much better. All right, as for this coming weekend, it's the last weekend before the 4th of July holiday. Although with many taking off the entire week after because the 4th of July is on a Thursday, these movies are hoping to get a head start. As I said, A Quiet Place 2 is getting all the premium screens, although the review embargo lifting on Thursday, the day that it hits theaters in the afternoon/evening, is a little worrisome. I can't make the press screening on Wednesday night, so my review will go up by the end of day on Thursday. I have to check it out, in theaters. But I mean, I'm not missing the review embargo by much. That's crazy. That movie looks so good. I can't believe the review embargo is so late. As I said, it's a little scary. Horizon has already been hit by a Rotten Tomato, but as I said, I thought it was pretty good. In fact, I'd like to see it again with my parents, and I think the 4th of July frame would be a great time to go see it. But it's booked largely on small screens, from what we can see. Not all the theaters have their showtimes up yet, but it's not looking good for Horizon. So, basically, do we want to spend 3 hours in the theater plus travel time? And, do we travel for a better screen? Right? And it would be basically like watching it on the size of my parents' television. So do I want to encourage them to spend that kind of money to go see the movie? It's really tough. What are you thinking? What are your plans for the holiday weekend? Some of you, I know you got to get your, although I have to say walk-up business is becoming quite the thing again. And there's still very nice tickets left for all these movies. You can wait until the last minute to go and see them. Even Inside Out 2. I saw it as I said, this weekend, on the IMAX. It was like the day before, you could have almost any seat. But then the morning of the showtime, it started to fill up very quickly. So that was fascinating to watch. For the IMAX, no less. I saw it on 68th, the Lincoln Center IMAX, which typically sells out like a week in advance. It's so popular because it's one of the only IMAXs of that size. All right, Kinds of Kindness also goes into wide release this coming weekend, and it's also very long, about 3 hours. Although I don't think it needs a big screen, so if you want to see it, you're going to go and see it. Although, are you having second thoughts after you've seen those reviews and audience scores? All right, on digital, Furiosa and Ezra hit on Tuesday, while The Watchers will already be available on Friday. As for streaming films, Celine Dion's documentary hits Prime Video on Tuesday, while on Friday, Netflix has its star-studded, as in, we can't believe those actors signed on for that movie, rom-com with a family affair, and Apple TV has Fancy Dance with Lily Gladstone. She's doing a pretty good job spending her Oscar nominee capital with this, and also Hulu's Under the Bridge. So I'll be curious to see if she can keep this momentum going, because those things kind of hit. Finally, with shows, it's finally here. The Bear drops its entire 3rd season. It's a binge, baby, on Thursday. This time, not just on Hulu, but on the Hulu Disney Plus interface. And yet again, FX has a show, and more streaming services are doing this, that they don't really feel needs to be reviewed. They feel it's review-proof. And so they're giving it out really only to like the major trades and a couple of small, maybe a couple like publications. And then they're just saying, you're already in or you're not, and everyone's just going to go and watch it. It's a very interesting trend. How do you feel about it? Do you like to see reviews of these shows? They did that with House of the Dragon, and its debut was a little soft. So how do you feel? Are reviews still important to you? Or at this point, do you know what you want to watch? Really, really interesting. We'll see how I think everybody's going to tune into The Bear. And also, it's already won so many awards at this point. I think they just are more, I guess because the streaming service is most interested in combating churn and getting subscribers. I was talking to someone about this last week, and that's that we kind of don't really totally, because it's not been made public, as to what is valued the most by streaming services in this era, right? I told you I'd heard one tech company tell the streaming service they'd acquired that they didn't care about awards and reviews and chatter. What they cared about was minutes watched. And so you're seeing a different metric driving behavior. All right, also, the Orphan Black spinoff Echoes finally airs here in the United States, starting tonight on AMC. Those of you outside the United States, did you watch it? Was it any good? We all like Kristen Ritter. Apple TV has Eva Longoria's Land of Women starting on Wednesday, although Eva Longoria is about to have a very nice run on the new Only Murders in the Building, where she appears. And then on Thursday, Prime Video has My Lady Jane, and That 90s Show returns to Netflix. But also on Thursday, the first presidential debate on CNN. Hoo boy. All right, and that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And what do you think of Inside Out 2's mega success? What does it mean for Disney? What does it mean for Hollywood? And do you think any other movies will be able to ride its coattails through the 4th of July holiday corridor? What are your plans? Share them down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.